Hi, my name is Brian Dorrington. I'm the Telemedia Director for the town of Tewksbury, and I have two very special guests today. They are the authors of Images of Tewksbury. We have Doug Sears and Nancy Reed with us. And if you could start by just giving us a brief introductions of yourself.
Well, I'm the president and incorporator of the Tewksbury Historical Society, and I've always been interested in history, and coming from Concord, I had hunt ancestors that I looked up, and then when I came to Tewksbury, saw that the Hunts were an important family over here, and I wanted to find the connection between the two, and I researched it, and the book shows what I found.
Yes, it does, and a lot more.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Reed, and I'm the Vice President of the Tewksbury Historical Society. At the moment, I am the town historian, and it's very interesting to do this work on behalf of the town. And I think Doug and I both lived in town about 40 years, and so we have a good perspective on what the high points of the history are, and doing our research and whatnot, listening to the elders in the town, have kind of learned what people are interested in, and so I think it was an easy fit for us to move forward with this.
Yeah, and that definitely shows in reading the book, which I recommend everybody does. Yeah. Can you start by just telling us how this project came about and how you two got involved as the authors?
Well, let me say that we have on the Historical Society discussed over time amongst the board the doing of a project similar to this. People made commitments, and then time went by and it just didn't happen. So Nancy and I just decided, okay, we're just going to do it. And we found the Arcadia books. They have a template that makes it easy. We have just, Nancy will say how we provided the content. We went along with their program, and it happened, and we're very happy to have this presentation and have this book. Nancy did all the work.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree with Doug's assessment there of how we started. I think one of the things that I noticed right away was that because of the fact that we worked in the town, Doug was a selectman and school committee member, and I used to be on the planning board. I think it gave us a good grounding in that we knew that when we set forth, we made the list, handwritten, piece of paper of the high points of the book, and quickly came to agreement on how this would look at the end, and I was happy that we could tap into our knowledge base to get that done quickly.
We only dealt with what we had in our archives, and that was what people over time had given us. And there were, big books with pictures in them and loose pictures and all, and using our scanning technology, Nancy's and a few helpers, mostly Nancy, scanned these things into the digital images that Arcadia Publishing wanted to receive.
So that's, I kind of want to touch on that too. So this is a history book largely told in images. How do you find the images and then match them with the history that you want to tell? Because it's just not like writing a regular history book where you do your own research. You have to have the images to actually match what you're saying. What's that process like?
In a word, it's difficult.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, it does give you the goal and the theme of the book, so you don't stray off into other topics. So basically, like I said, we had the list, which then through the process you have to submit to them your chapters. So from the list, we folded that in and made the chapters of the book. And then as you develop what the chapters of the book are, and the pictures that you have that fit those chapters and fit the theme of the history of the town and hit the high points, it starts to fit together. It's almost like a puzzle. It's almost like a 3D puzzle. And then you have pictures that overlap, and sometimes you say, oh, that would be better, it's better as a farm than it is as a town center item. Or a police item might actually be better as a town center item. Many things fold into town center. Many things fold into the Tewksbury Hospital.
Yes.
And we also had to find ones that were in focus, because some of them were some great shots, but they're not going to reproduce in the format that they wanted. So it was a big search to find ones that went along with the chapter proposal and that were printable. And so there was some back and forth on, can you do this, or can you find another one to replace? And it's very time intensive. And
I brought a few just that we didn't get in. I don't know if you want to talk about that now.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure, yeah, why not? Because, I mean, that's another question that I had is, you have so many good images, how hard is it to choose which ones to include, and are there any that you wish you could include? And I guess you have some.
So we had a police picture that had the policeman driving the car, and then you have two children just kind of hanging out of the window from like the 1960s before they had seatbelts. And, so you have some things that like we take for granted today, but then, if you look back, it isn't even that long, 50, 60 years. So much has changed. We also have the picture of Fada Joe Rue in the book, who was a town center figure for a few decades around the turn of the century, the 19th century, and he performed many helpful things with the townspeople. From his shop, we have PJ Rue's shop, right? And he did putting shoes on horses. He did that in the World War I. His children went on to live in the town. The Rues have an extended family in the town. I don't want to go into that, but also married into the Deputat family, and there's that whole story. So. We could not put this because the picture, while was an original, it was far too pixelated. And then we had George Gale.
Well, let's save him because we're going to discuss him later. He comes up many times in this book. Let's just start with a brief overview of some of you mentioned Samuel Hunt. Can we just talk a little bit about some of the early history of Tewksbury that didn't really make it into the book, but that can help frame this, specifically with the Wamosets and Samuel Hunt?
Well, I was interested. I was ordained as a Unitarian minister back almost 50 years ago in Concord. So at the first parish church I was very interested in. And that Peter Bulkley was there for many, many years, and he's looked as the founder of Concord. Well, when he came over from England, he brought the Hunt family with him, and essentially Samuel's Hunt, the grandson that started our town, originally went from Concord to his father, then went to Ipswich and up in the North Shore. And then to a block house in the Belvedere section of town, which was where the Wamosets were living. It goes into this in quite detail in the introduction. But my interest in Concord, I lived in Concord, and how the Hunts of my family went to Tewksbury was an intellectual process that I enjoyed, going to the Concord libraries of archives and finding, my gosh, yes, there is a connection there between the Hunts and my family and the Hunts that ended up in Tewksbury. And so then, okay, well, what about the land that Samuel lived on. And that gets to how we were all Billerica, and then how we separated off. But where we separated off goes back to the late 1600s when Reverend John Eliot was creating a Wamasett community of praying Indians. And so all of this, and where did people go? Where did the Wamasets go? Why? How long did they stay here? And how is it that we started to have a town separated off from Billerica? It's just a fun thing, and I'll just put in a plug for the Historical Society. This is what we're looking for individuals to do, to encourage people. This is an encouragement, to encourage people to find their own stories, whether it be in town or most likely from other spots. But so this all has come out, at least from my point of view, a interest in learning my roots. Okay, and I'm very happy that Nancy has such skill and determination that she was able to do all the grunt work basically that produced this book, which hopefully people will buy.
Well, if they're smart, they will check it out because it is a great book, and there are so many things to touch on. I just sort of made a list of some things that I found interesting. Other viewers are going to find other things interesting. Let's just start with sort of where the book starts, with the Ye Old Book, or Ye Old Book. How's it pronounced?
Ye Town Book?
Ye Town Book, excuse me, Ye Town Book. Do you mind discussing that a little bit?
I can. So in 1934, that was the 200th anniversary of our town's incorporation. And the town endeavored to put on a weekend-long festivity with parades, pageants, historic exhibits, picnics of all kinds. And, fortunately, someone had taken pictures of this event. The parade from beginning to end, a lot of the pageantry, the speakers at the time, the visuals from Town Common, the banners and buntings all over all the buildings to celebrate. It was very patriotically set up. The book itself was a guide made before the event. So a person in the town would have this booklet. I'd say it was like 8 by 10 and even thicker than this book. Details what was going on at churches, what was going on with the parade, everything like that. Pictures of all the committee members. It just went into every single thing. And then it also had sections of history about the town. And so we have a snapshot from 1934 of, some of the high points, again, of the history of the town in that book. So we have that as a reference, and then we have the pictures that were taken during the events to match up. And it's like that, you could do a whole book on just that.
About those pictures, do you have any idea who took those? Because as looking at all these images, it's always, the images are great, but then I'm always like, who was taking these? Because the cameras in those times, they weren't easy to manipulate. Is there any information on that?
So the pictures from the 200th anniversary are from Taddy Brown, who is mentioned in the book.
And previous town historian.
Previous way, 50 years ago, town historian. And so I don't know if it was his family that did it or somebody that he knew that did it, but he evidently ended up with all these pictures, which were taken actually from a high place. Like, it wasn't taken from the ground, it was somewhere high, and they got these really great snapshots of the parade and different events. And so we're very fortunate to have both of the items, the book and the pictures. To me, that's my favorite part of the book. just because it, first of all, is visually quite. It's actually inspiring to see a town in 1934, and you know, coming out of the Depression and different things like that. They were just so spectacularly dressed. They had the place dressed up. They just went all out, you know.
Yeah.
And we
And
could
you
see on
just-
the cover of the
Which
book,
is the cover
people
of
are
the
rather
book is taken
formally
from that.
Yeah,
attired.
yeah, yeah.
And so it, to me, it just signifies so much. You know, they just had such great, you know, feelings about the town, the country, etc. And you know, that part I hope comes through. So that, you know, I mean that.
And then Harold Patton.
But
later
that
on.
dovetails as well, because Harold Patton, who then wrote a history book in 1964-65, he was instrumental in that festivities in the book exactly too. So he not only was impactful then, but he was impactful 30 years later with his second book. And so, you know, he's in the book as well. And we wouldn't be here today without people like him, and especially him, actually, that had passed along all these some little stories and some, you know, overriding big events in the town.
Yeah, it's amazing that they were documenting that, and that they were able to be preserved for that long. And the images look great. They
I
really
just,
do.
yeah, I'm amazed. And we actually have some of the Yeatown books in storage,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
like a stack, never touched.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's great. There is not all that much written down about the town. They go back to our Pride history was 1883.
1888.
Yeah, there was a sort of a civic lecture series that he wrote for. And one of the things I remember, he was a minister also, a Baptist minister, I believe, in town. And he apologized for some of the stories. He said, well, everybody knows these. I'm just, you know, writing down what everybody else knows. And for for years, that was the only, you know, book of the history of the town that was at all comprehensive. In these two books here, that the 1934 and the 1964 books have kind of added. So, and when we did this book, we went by the particular chapters, and the major coverage is sort of between the time of the mid 1800s up until the First World War. Of course, the carnations and all that
little
stuff
beyond.
later
Yeah.
on come further, but I just wanted to point to the fact that Tewksbury was a real rural community. And what amazes me, you look down, Main Street, and there are various houses. The houses, weren't like an acre and a half. I mean, they were like 30 acres, 40 acres, some 100 acres, 5 acres, or whatever. So this was a real rural community with, the genuine farms and lovely old colonial houses that went with it.
And the homes are some of my favorite images in the books, just seeing how they are. And I already got the 10-minute warning from Jason. So this is going to be a part 2. So people stay tuned. There are going to be 2 parts of this because we have so much left to cover, and this has already been very interesting. I was going to touch on the farms next. And Tewksbury is the carnation capital of the world. Tell us about
Sudbury would dispute that, but we are Tewksbury proud and
Tewksbury proud.
definitely,
Sorry, Sudbury.
definitely we're the capital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in 1976, the Yankee magazine did a full article on Patton's Carnation Florist Company on North Street, and deemed us the carnation capital of the world.
Wow.
An interesting thing as well is that carnations require, to be grown indoors, and they need to have heat. So in the oil crisis of the 1970s, many of these farms that we'll discuss later folded because they couldn't afford to keep their product warm. And so that is a time of growth. That's when the condominiums, generally you can say, came in, because a lot of the carnation farms then became the condominiums that we have in town today. You have some of the names of the farmers and on the names of the condominium developments.
Wow, that's great. And so I just want to touch on another thing that I found really interesting. First of all, the book is not necessarily linear. It's broken up into different sections, which I actually really liked. So the next section is, I believe, highlights some of the families. And one family that really stood out was the Roper family. Can you discuss a little bit about them? Because they did some pretty cool things.
Yeah, so I had just found this out actually working through what type of pictures we would use. And we had several of the Ropers, and one stuck out because I said, well, this one's, the clearest picture that we have. And it actually shows the greenhouse in the back and Mark Roper in the front. And so I started to look into it, and also in our collection we have newspaper clippings. And I had one for a Roper person, I believe he's the next generation down. He did not work in the florist business, but he went into the service, Air Force, Vietnam, and ended up flying Air Force One for Nixon, Carter, and Ford, and Henry Kissinger, back and forth, from the Middle East and whatnot. And that was new to me, and I just thought for sure that we should highlight that type of person in Tewksbury. That here he came, his family came from a florist, and he grew up to do those things, very important things. And unfortunately, he did die pretty young. I don't know if it was from his work in Vietnam. I know I have relatives that served in Vietnam that died young.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that was a completely new item for myself. Other people in town might know that, but
and of course, Roper Estates. That's where the old Roper carnation farm was, and this is sort of the way all things come together. And when Nancy, you just go and you find something interesting, and then you just want to pursue it. And this is, repeating myself, but the type of opportunity and excitement that the Tewksbury Historical Society encourages other citizens in the town residents to do.
Yeah, and he's a very fascinating person. There's another fascinating person. There are a lot of fascinating people in this book, but another one that stuck out to me, and I got the 5-minute warning, so this might be one of the last ones. We're going to tease people. We've got so much more in the next episode. We're going to talk about the Almshouse, the Tewksbury State Hospital, Miko Kaufman, so you're going to want to watch part 2. Let's quickly touch on Ames Castle and Adalbert Ames, because that's actually that's one of my favorite pictures too. It's a shame that it's not still around. It wasn't, able to be preserved, because it's a beautiful structure and a great picture in the book. But can we talk a little bit about Ames Castle and Adalbert Ames?
He went to West Point, was a Mainer. Father was a clipper ship captain. Dad wanted him to do that, and he went to West Point instead. Got into the Union Army early on, was very badly injured at Bull Run. Of course, the North did not do very well there, but he went on and went up the chain of command, and as often happened in the Civil War, you rose rapidly because the other officers below you were killed. He was appointed the governor of Louisiana, Louisiana, no, of Mississippi, excuse me. Butler was of Louisiana. Then he became a senator. He took the place of, it's a senator before governor, I believe. He took the place of, what's his name, Davis,
Jefferson Davis.
Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president, and served both as an elected senator and as an appointed senator in Mississippi. And I'd like to think that we came up in 1908, I believe, bought about 1,000 or so acres of land here, and on Ames Hill, the highest point in the town, where he built what is called, Ames Castle, dammed up what's Ames Pond there is to make a body of water. Was the last general to die in 1937 or so, and was a very noteworthy person in this town. And you can say a little bit about the castle here.
Well, the castle took on a few different uses, I guess you'd say. First, it was his home, and then I think it was a nursing
home for a while,
and then some apartments. But fell into disrepair and found to be beyond its useful purpose, and had to be destroyed. But what we do have are many excellent pictures, and there's entire books about him, and there's so much. His family, his daughter has the Ames. She married an Ames, not the same family, but her name is Blanche Ames. And those on the South Shore will know, in Easton and Sharon, there's her estate is there, saved and preserved.
Yeah.
I visited that, and it does harken you back to this style of the size and scope and the windows, and it's just, you can tell it's somebody that appreciates the outdoors, because you can see they're obviously letting it into the house.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating structure, and we're showing it on the screen. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop. A half an hour goes by so quick. Like I said, you're gonna have to tune in for the next episode. We're gonna talk about favorite pictures, and we got a few surprises for you. So, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Nancy. Once again, I'm Brian Dorrington. The book is Images of America, Tewksbury edition. Thank you very much.